Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining me. My name is Angelique Rodriguez, and you are here with Water First Medicine. Thank you to New Revolution Radio, Maddie Bovard, for hosting us, for allowing us to share the water messages that have come through from my personal experience, is all I can share. And I ask, that what I offer, you just let it sit, see if it resonates. If not, then I encourage you, well, even if it does, to continue and enjoy questioning and being in the magic of what's possible through our waters. And hopefully, my stories can inspire new perspectives and new awarenesses around the relationship and different ways we can come through and experience our waters. So, without further ado, I will invite you to gather your water, to be here with us, to be present in this talk this evening, and to be open to receiving your heart messages in the waters that you are, and inviting this water that we hold with us tonight as our heart and our waters move to contain the medicine that will help us to continue exploring into what's possible as we develop our relationships with the gods inside of us. So I'm just going to open up and thank the water for the gift. Thank you, Great Spirit, for the gift of water and her ability to support us and to guide us and to nurture us through a crazy world, for sure. And what a loving provision that's been made for us. And with deep gratitude, I'm thankful for all of the gifts that water has given me and continues to give me in my relationship and dropping in with her. So we invite these waters to hold a higher resonance for us all as we grow and evolve into our fifth dimensional beings, and inviting the water as our ally, as our mother, to co-create with us in this our new paradigm. And today I wanted to share, I don't have a guest, and I want to thank you for your time and for your presence here. The message that I wanted to share today was one that has been coming through for some time now, and as many of us, the reference is going through shadow work and meeting our shadows, and dealing with a lot of energies that are moving through in this world that are pretty crazy. And the piece that I want to bring is, in my perception, was about protection and kind of like a resistance sort of thing of not opening myself to these energies, which excuse me, please understand, I'm going to try, words aren't always the best way to communicate, so I'm going to try to communicate this clearly. But it's the resistance that we create in the right and the wrongness of people, actions, or ourself. And fundamentally, that's a flawed perspective, because we're really just in a recourse. And I know I've spoken about this before, how if we kind of open the lens and get into a more macro version of seeing what's happening in the great expanse, is like we can just see this as a recourse and a correction to a path, just like a child is learning and understanding. It doesn't mean that the child is bad or evil. It just, there's a level of ignorance and lack of experience that doesn't allow the child to have that forethought of what the consequences could be. And so this is kind of the way that I look at it, is just like we as humanity are like that child, where we are still learning. And I think that the message is coming through loud and clear of the current system isn't working for the people. And many of you may know, when you're a citizen, you're 16th on the hierarchy, and that's the way that they've set it up on our legal and the whole system. But as you go back to the people, then actually you become first on that list of the hierarchy, and then all those services are your services instead of you being subject to them. So just a little tidbit of information there. But going back to the piece of just the lack of resistance and seeing it as a recourse is allows us to really just let go of that judgment. And even in our minds, like the idea of the judgment and the shame that we can give ourselves when we hold these patterns that we think that we should be moving past or that we should be done with, and we find ourselves in them again, to have a compassionate heart for yourself, to really just surrender into seeing and loving yourself on that level, just like a child, and visualize yourself as a child. Like maybe you have an image of a picture when you were a child that you were beaming and you could see the light just coming from you. And if you can hold that vision, if that was your child, what you would want for that child and how much you would want to give them in a good way and to support them and nurture them, well, that's our waters. And so every step we take into our waters is that parent, that loving parent, ready to receive us and nurture us. And with, being in the question, as we come into this relationship with our water, I've spoke many times before about being in the question as to how we can move forward from our own internal waters and our own authentic voice that is between us and Spirit and our waters. Since Spirit put water as the conduit between us and Him. As our mother, she is the demonstration of Spirit to us. And all of the things that we enjoy and all the beauty and all the babies are all iterations of water. That is another way that water is the conduit for us accessing Spirit. And so that's the design. And so when we consciously understand and comprehend the implications of that, how we can be co-creators, how we can step into our birthright and co-creative ability to work with the water that leaves your voice, work with the water that's in the molecules around you, work with the water that is the molecules you are, because it's all programmable. And so when we're living in a place of fear, when we feel like we have to resist and protect and don't get close to me, which I am absolutely, I'm telling you, this is my personal lesson, because I feel like it wasn't normally my mode, but then I went traveling a lot and I met a lot of people. There was a lot of energy coming in, a lot of personal contact, things that like I wasn't personally used to so much to that degree. And it was what I found in my first phase of my water tour is I was thinking I need to fortify more. And I do agree with that, but from originally where I was coming from, that place was I need to protect myself from the energies that I don't want holding on. And not that people are doing it intentionally, it's just the way that energies work. And when you're tired or you're out of balance, which happens to us all, including myself, then things are easily able to penetrate through your field, and that's been my experience. So, in my time with the water, what was shared with me was that really, when we let go of that judgment of the right and wrong, and the good and the bad of things, and all we focus on is holding the highest frequency of love that is in our capability all the time, and making that the practice, making that the conscious practice that is simple but not easy. And what's not easy about it is that moment to moment to micro moment to micro moment to moment, it's a practice of our mind, to bring our mind back into our heart, to remember, oh, it's not all about up here. I can create these stories. I can tell myself so many stories throughout the day that are just imaginary. And then I create this emotional content around it. And then my story gets even bigger. And then I start believing my story and realizing that typically for me, the story is just like, oh, this is happening to me. Instead of just witnessing, oh, this is something that is happening, period. And I can be the observer of it and just learn, observe and learn and watch how we function from our deepest source. Like if we're projecting things, then what is that inside of us that makes us feel like a sense of threat or a sense of insecurity or a sense of unsafety? And finding that one seed within ourselves will release our projections onto these other people of what they've done to us or what our perception of them doing something to us can be. And so when we take this concept and bring it to a bigger degree on a global scale, on a planetary scale, and even beyond, and we, there's still like this duality that happens of good and bad and the devil and God. But the truth of the matter, from my perspective, is if that oneness is actually a truth, if that, which I found that's the foundation of everything, that there is a oneness that everything encompasses, then that would mean that the devil is part of that oneness. And if God is love and everything that God does is love, then that would mean that also maybe Lucifer has love as well, or is love as well. And it's a perception of a program that's been running since the beginning of time of this duality, but really it's just options, it's choices and different experiences that we as human beings in this time have the opportunity to have choice and have free will and exercise that. And do I like the things that I see in the world? No. But am I going to resist it? Am I going to fight it? I don't feel like that's necessarily the way to go about it. What has come through to me is to just hold that high resonance as often and as much as you can and make that your mode of functioning always. Like you're always just, excuse me, holding that space for yourself first, because we can't give what we don't have. So what that looks like is if your body's telling you to take a nap, then take a nap. And if your body's telling you to go sit in the river, then go sit in the river. If it's saying to journal, then actually listen. If we're asking for this relationship with our water and we're hearing it and then ignoring it, just like any relationship, that person isn't going to stay very long. They're not going to sit around and be disrespected like that. So when we're developing our personal relationship with our own waters and we're getting these communications and we hear that voice that just is like, hey, this, then the practice is to listen and to act on that, because that is our higher self. That is the intelligence that's tapped in and tuned in and turned on or something. I forget how she says that. But that is how we open our antenna to all the waters and have access to all of the information through our questions, and we get to reap this information that's happened since that first utterance. And that's our co-creative ability, as I've said many times. This is just a reiteration of that, but the piece of going back of the judgment with the right and the wrongness, it's like the fact that the divine feminine voice hasn't had equality since this cycle is really just a different experience that humanity is having, but it's not necessarily the experience that we have to stay in. And this is where our free will comes in, where we can actually choose, well, hey, this isn't working, it doesn't feel good, it's not good for the planet, we might not be here much longer if we continue this way. So hey, let's do this differently. Let's listen to our inner voice. Let's have these conversations with our waters and allow the spirit that lives within us through our waters to move us from this place of love. Because when we're in that space of love, that kitten, ishy gushy newborn baby love that I talk about, where you just, your heart's wide open and you feel so much gratitude, co-creating from that space, then we are embodying the gods that we're designed to be by being in the likeness of spirit and being able to co-create through the way the water molecule works and the programming that is possible to happen within the water molecule. And this is how we bring our medicine into our water, through our intention and our voice and our prayer and our will. And we align these things from a place of love, and we embed that into the molecular structure of the water. And what that molecular structure is actually doing is holding the frequency of that prayer, so that when we're consuming that water, whether it be at night, in the morning, or throughout the day, if we're sharing our water with our daily water, then we're actually receiving those prayers. We're actually receiving that medicine and those frequencies that are being dispersed in our beingness with every drink. And every cell is getting that information of that prayer or that intention. And love is the carrier of that. That is our co-creation. That is us being in the likeness of spirit, because that is where our co-creative ability lies. When we're programming the water and we're setting our intention and we're aligning these things to become the medicine for us, the medicine for our planet, when we're building our future as we build and go through all these new experiences, because none of this has been done before. And we're rewriting the whole script. So it's taking a little more time, yeah. And yeah, it's a little crazy, and it's people coming together and experiencing the vortex of the water and all of the beauty and alchemy that happens in that. But then also all of those impurities being brought to the center to be alchemized. And so when we come in community and all these things are coming up, can we step into this place of our own water and finding the seed of what is actually triggering us, so that we can let it go and release everybody else around us and take that responsibility for our own healing, because no one else can do that for us. We have to walk into these shadow places. And when I say shadow and I talk about duality, this is the point that I want to make, is that shadow is natural. Shadow allows there to be light. And it's the oneness, just like the electron and the proton. The concept is that they're separate things, but they're not. There's a oneness to that, where they're a unit. And the light and the dark is also a unit. There's a symbiotic thing that's happening where they need each other. And so when we let go of the judgment and the duality, and we just see it as a functioning, flowing unit, then we don't have to take it personal about what's happening in the world. And I'm not saying that I don't care. Absolutely not saying that. What I am saying is that if I'm caring, does my care take me to fear and hold me in the frequency that I'm actually having an issue with? Or does that care inspire me to hold a different frequency of love and envision the change of that, envision that, not that reorganizing itself to where there's an abundance and there's a flow, and where Mother Nature is actually allowed to move through that area or through that whatever it is. And I feel like this is how we can move through this shift and this veil as we step into the next paradigm and the next octave, and we co-create the newness of everything, and understand that it's going to take time and it's going to take energy to understand ourselves on this intimate level, so that we can fill up our own cup and come with our gifts from an overflowing cup. from the heart, completely open without any expectations or any need for anything in return, because that's our gift. And it's extra because we've filled our own cup already. We took that bath, we took that nap, we honored ourselves. And now I feel good. I feel refreshed. So yeah, now whatever I choose to do, even if I turn down the party to take the nap, whatever I do next, I am going to be there in my fullness. Because I listened to myself and didn't say go to the party. I took a nap. And so these are different ways that we can start to have an awareness and a listening of our own internal waters and allow her to navigate us into the ease and grace that life can be, and allowing that judgment to leave even our own inner dialogue of our waters, and just understanding that it's all a recourse. And when we surrender to the oneness that is and see that this duality isn't actually a duality, but is a unit of oneness, then we can choose with a freeness of just, you know what, I don't have to go into the fear of that. Instead, what I think I'm going to do is drop into my heart and let my spirit be motivated from love. And in this, we are changing and being the change and holding the frequency of a new resonance that is our future. This is our co-creative ability, and this is how we get it done. And so when there's an alignment and a resonance there, when we can hold our own resonance and our waters in a stable way, and just like everything, there's an ebb and a flow because we're learning. It's like, oh, I'm out of balance. Oh, okay. What do I need to do? What is that imbalance, first of all? And then, like, what is it inside of me that I need to change in my perspective about that imbalance so that I can regain my balance? Where do I find my authentic thread in that imbalance that's just like, oh, I'm pissed because he didn't do this for me. And now it didn't get done at all because I chose to do what they wanted to do. And that's a demonstration of us giving our sovereignty away. And our cup isn't full. So now somebody else has to fill that. So when we make these choices for ourselves and we honor ourselves and we listen to the voice that asks us to journal or to nap or to whatever it is, and we honor the authentic, beautiful being that we're here to be, then we find a level of resonance of our soul tone that carries far and wide into the multiverse. And we become this beautiful symphony together, singing our true tone. And in our true tone, we find a resonance with those around us that are singing their true tone. And we start to come together and create this mycelium that is the foundation of our new world. As co-creators, together we dream it up, and we work through these impurities when we come together in these vortexes. When water is vortexing, it comes together and it pushes, and all the molecules in the center of that water get pushed together and create a plasma. That's the alchemy that happens in water, and it enlivens the water that it touches. So that is the engine of life, and why water is always capable to have more to give to us is this alchemy that happens in the space between. And when we gather and we come into these communities, we're getting our waters close together. It's the space in between. And all of a sudden what happens in these vortexes is if there's impurities, the impurities will be pulled to the center. And you literally can see them flowing in the center of the vortex on the outer, on the inner ring of the water of the vortex. It's not on the outer part of the circle, it's on the inner part of the circle, feeling all that alchemy. And so this is us as we come together. We're getting this alchemy, and the impurities are coming out. They're coming forward. They're visible. Do we have the capacity to come from love and see the water that is across from us and disagreeing with us and hurting us and all these things and all these projections that we put of something being done to us, or are we willing to really just say, brother, sister, I love you. Thank you. Thank you for showing me this, and I'm going to go be over here, and I'm going to go do my work, and, maybe I'll tap back in, maybe I won't. But I'm going to understand this deeper for myself, and I'm going to stop looking at you for the answer. And so will we, and are we willing to just be and do the alchemy of our own evolution, of our own purification, of our own refinement and life force energy that creates the abundance of spirit, that creates rejuvenation, that creates health, that creates youthfulness and joy? Are we willing to step into that as our birthright and acknowledge that we are co-creators of that, and we can have as much of it as we choose? But we have to choose how we act, how we think, because we're always programming our waters. Are we thinking back here, or are we thinking forward from love? Are we functioning from fear of the way that the world is? Is that going to change it? Or do we just function from a completely different place? Because vibrationally, love and fear cannot coexist. So if you're choosing to function from love, do you understand how clear your mind and your heart just got? How easily you can be in the flow? How much you can just let go? And again, it's not easy. It's a simple concept, just let it go. But it's a practice. It's a moment-to-moment practice of how we navigate our own waters, the level of responsibility that we want to take for our own well-being, whether that be our emotional well-being, our spiritual, mental, or physical well-being. Those are our choices. So are we listening and having conversations with the only part of us that has literally touched God? Are we willing to just have that? And be in the question of, like, how can I support myself? How can I honor myself? How can I receive, emanate love? How can I be in alignment, my highest alignment? What does that look like? What does it feel like? Where would I have to go? Do I have to go anywhere? And just be open to what drops in when you're in that stillness of your own waters.